All right, so I know it's been a bit since the Switch 2 news has been around, but better late than never, I guess. So I want to give away my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, as many people already have their opinions. People already decided if they're going to buy the console or not. I just want to sit here and talk about my thoughts on the whole thing and what I think is good and bad. So Wednesday, April 2nd was the Nintendo Direct for the Nintendo Switch 2. The Direct was focused heavily on the console and pretty much what games were going to be on it, as well as the information on the release date, the pricing, you know the drill. So yeah, let's get on with my thoughts. So the first thing we see is the one game that we were all questioning about ever since the console was revealed back in January, the latest Mario Kart in the Mario Kart franchise since Mario Kart 8 in 2014, Mario Kart World. Now, this game right off the bat really impressed me because we're not sticking with 12 racers this time around. We have a whopping 24 racers on the track. 24 racers. I mean, that is insane when you think about it. I mean, Mario Kart has always been a crazy, chaotic racing game. Add 24 racers into the mix, and you are asking for a chaotic experience, even better than before. The game looks great. The art style is completely different from its predecessor. It looks almost like they took the models from Wonder and put it into this game, which is, a fresh coat of paint. It's a breath of fresh air to see all these characters, and it's honestly for the best because they look so vibrant, colorful, full of expression, full of life. It's just something that when you go back and see of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it honestly kind of needed the upgrade. We have some new features like grind railing and racing on the walls and whatnot. Some new items. There was like a coin block, and you were able to ride on like trucks and whatnot. There was also this food thing that you can eat, which pretty much gives you different outfits. And I think it like after you eat it, you unlock the outfit for you to wear in regular races. And upon from that, there's more information after the trailer. It was said that you could drive literally everywhere. Now, what they mean by that is that the tracks are all connected, which in previous games, after you finish a race, you were immediately sent off to the next track. In this one, once you're done with a race, you can actually drive to the next track instead of just the game automatically giving you the next track. I thought that was pretty cool. We also have a new mode called Knockout Tour, which if you're familiar with your racing games, you might know what this mode is. It's pretty much race before you will get eliminated. Make sure you want to stay in the higher position or exactly where they want you to be. Otherwise, if you're anywhere lower than the position that they want you to be, then you'll be pretty much eliminated. It's nothing new compared to other racing games, but it is something new for this game. So yeah, I think that'll be a fun mode to try out with friends. One of the biggest modes that caught my surprise was free roam. Now, this is something that has never been done in the series history, where you can pretty much drive around anywhere in the tracks, like literally anywhere, which makes me question what exactly is this for. They said that you can pretty much unlock new routes, but for what purpose exactly? Which makes me think that maybe there'll be a story mode for the game. I don't know, we'll have to see. Now, that's all that they had to say about Mario Kart World, but they did say that the game is coming out on the same day as the Switch 2, alongside a Direct for April 17th, which I will be covering as well. Next, we go over to one of the folks in charge of the Switch 2, introducing us to the C button on the Joy-Con 2s. And this was a button that we all caught a glimpse of during the reveal, but we didn't exactly know what it was. The C button could have meant anything. Maybe it was a new capture button, maybe it was something related to maybe sharing with something. But what they actually showed was something that was far beyond my expectations. It was essentially Nintendo's version of Discord, essentially, which is kind of funny considering how I don't know if many people are going to use the thing. I honestly kind of see this maybe as something little kids might use together with their friends. But me personally, I don't think I'm going to get much use out of this thing. And I don't think it's terrible. I think it's a pretty creative idea. It's just, I used to play Nintendo Switch games with my friends over, the PS5 party chats or over Discord now, but it is nice to have a more convenient way instead of having to like go over to another platform to having to chat there. So maybe there could be some use here, maybe not. But personally, it wasn't a terrible idea. If anything, I find it much better than using an app on your phone to, use voice chat like with the original Switch. Now, the Switch 2 has a camera that you can also use for not only to game share your games with, but also to show yourself on the camera for whatever reason. The only negative real thing I have about the mic on the Switch 2 is that they can hear like you pretty much anything in the background. So if you have a mom on the phone, if you have like someone like in the kitchen making noise, whatever, that noise will probably be around unless you have like a headset around you, which honestly I think that's my only nitpick. But honestly speaking, the entire concept of game chat, I think it's okay at the very best. And for for what it's worth, until 2026, we will be able to try this out for free. After that will be only like Switch Online members can use this feature, which honestly, okay, like fair enough, I guess. Nintendo also introduced Game Share, which is pretty much what the DS and 3DS used to do back in the day, where if you had the game, you could play with other people even when they don't have the game, as long as they got the Switch 2 or even the regular Switch. And you can also use this to play games online as well as do it with game chat. That's pretty interesting. But okay, this was the big reveal that I have been waiting for ever since the Switch 2 was first revealed. Now, this has been what many people have been hoping, that this would be a one-to-one upgrade from the Nintendo Switch. Now, we all know the Nintendo Switch is a great console for its games, and for the early years it was really great in terms of its graphics, its power, its compatibility with other third-party games. But as the years went on into the Switch's lifespan, by year 4, year 5, year 6, the Switch has just been kind of just in terms of with its games, like games like Hyrule Warriors and third-party games. They've just kind of been slacking. There haven't been that many third-party games, and there's been a lot of infestation with cloud gaming and whatnot. So hopefully the Switch 2 will deliver, and it did. It did, man. We got a lot of new upgrades. Firstly, the screen is a lot bigger for 120 frames per second on handheld mode. That is pretty cool. Not only that, but HDR as well. It ain't OLED, but I'll take it. We also got magnetic Joy-Cons instead of having to put the Joy-Cons sideways like the old one. And you can actually take it out magnetically by pressing a button on the back, which automatically disconnects the magnets. That's pretty cool. The SL and SR buttons on the Switch 2 compared to the original are much bigger, which means people with bigger thumbs will have a much easier time pressing the buttons when they're playing multiplayer games. We also finally have confirmation that the Joy-Cons can be used as mouses, like computer mouses, a built-in mic, 2 USB-C ports that you could use for either charging or using the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, a better kickstand than even the OLED, a whopping 256 gigabytes as opposed to the old Switch being 32 and even the newer model OLEDs being 64 gigabytes, and the big one, the Switch dock being able to run at 4K resolution. This was a pretty big deal. It seems like they pretty much listened to all of what the Switch was being criticized for as it went on. So to see Nintendo finally get ahead of the crowd, finally keeping up with either PlayStation or Microsoft, they're finally giving us 4K with the dock. And it's also getting a cooler, which, obviously is the norm for these days if you're going to do 4K. Another thing Nintendo showcased was this new tech demo called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which of course is exclusive to the Switch 2. This is kind of the same thing as Astro's Playroom, where that was a free tech demo, showcasing the PS5's capabilities, showing off that horsepower. And this is no doubt the same thing, except this is more or less just, a game where you just play mini games. The game gives you information about, how they put the Switch 2 together, what it is the Switch 2 actually does, what is inside, like what's inside the rumble, whatnot. And, all that is good and handy. But the thing is, this thing is not something that just comes with the console. This thing is a paid tech demo. And and a lot of other people, I don't like that. Like, personally speaking, I think these type of games should have been with the console and not something that should be paid for. Now, I understand Nintendo doesn't like offering out free handouts for their hard work. I get that, but we're already spending a lot of money for the console, and I feel like it wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't hurt so much to put just this onto the system as like the only way to get it, by paying that large amount of money. But I digress. Now, it is reported that it was announced to be $10, which I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I thought it was going to be a lot higher than that, but $10, I mean, take it or leave it. My personal opinion, fine, I guess. Water under the bridge. Personally, I still think it should have been better free, but whatever, I guess. We were also shown the Switch 2 game cards and how they were going to be faster. We've also seen the micro SD express cards that they're going to be using instead of the normal micro SD cards they've been using for the Switch, system transfers, and finally the release date being June 5th, 2025, which honestly isn't that much of a wait considering how the original Switch kind of took the same time, where it was first revealed back in October to then January where we got more information in games to then release of March. And it's kind of the same thing with this, with being the reveal of January, now being this to April, and now we're finally getting it just 2 months later. It's kind of like the same pattern with the Switch, so really not a long wait. In addition to past Switch games being backwards compatible, we also have Switch 2 additions to already existing Nintendo Switch games, Super Mario Party being one of those games. Now, in my honest opinion, I haven't played Jamboree yet, so all of these new features are new to me, but one thing I did notice is that it's going to be used a lot heavily on the camera itself, and I think that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll pick this up considering how I never picked up Jamboree. So yeah, that's one thing that I may be slightly interested in if more than one friend of mine is very interested in playing it. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will also be getting Switch 2 editions, which honestly, it wasn't even a surprise. It was to be expected. These two are one of the best-selling games on the Switch, one of the most popular games on the Switch, Breath of the Wild, without a damn doubt. So it was obviously going to be one of those games to get that Switch 2 edition treatment with, like higher resolution, faster load times, and a Zelda Notes, which is essentially just a genuine GPS tracker, for helping you out with those annoying ass Korok seeds, which for me that's actually kind of useful, but other than that, that's pretty much about it. But hey, I mean, the games already look that good on Switch, and they're gonna look even better on Switch 2. I mean, just looking at Breath of the Wild in a higher frame rate is kind of crazy, so I'm definitely gonna check those out when I can. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is getting a Switch 2 edition with a new story mode DLC. It's pretty much an expansion of what the original game was. Other than that, I don't think there's much to this. I think maybe there's a higher frame rate resolution. I think so, but other than that, it's good for the Kirby fans out there, and I am a Kirby fan myself, but I personally do not know if I'm going to get back into Forgotten Land. It's been quite a while. I think at this point I'm just going to wait for the new game, honestly. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is also getting a Switch 2 edition, which honestly I'm not surprised by, but honestly at the same time I am, because this is one of my most anticipated games of the year, and the Switch 2 is also coming out this same year, so it's really no surprise that it's going to get a Switch 2 edition. Now, the one thing different about this in the Switch version is that this one is also going to let you do mouse controls, which I'm honestly very excited about, and the fact that it'll let you choose the mode between 4K 60 frames per second or 1080p 120 frames per second, which honestly I might do both, considering how I'm probably going to be going to a lot of places around, I want to say probably around that time. So yeah, I'm good with both, honestly. I'm really excited for this game. Please, I want this game to be good. The last Switch 2 edition game that we saw was Pokemon Legends ZA, which honestly, I'm very surprised that a Pokemon game of all games is reaching 60 frames per second, because, given Pokemon's history with its mainline games on Switch, yeah, not a very good track record, but honestly, this one looks pretty promising for Switch 2 standards, so I might give this one a shot just because, and I honestly really liked Scarlet and Violet for how mid the performance was, so yeah, I'll definitely give that one a shot. But so far, all the additions for Switch 2 have been okay at the very best. The only one that I'm really excited for is Prime 4 Beyond, but I will give the Pokemon game a try, because I'm in the mood for another Pokemon game, even if I'm not really much of a fan of them. We also have this new game that takes advantage of the Joy-Con's mouse settings, which is Drag X Drive or Dragon Drive. Personally speaking, I'm not that interested into this game. This is kind of like how they made ARMS, take advantage of the Joy-Cons. But it's a cool idea, but it's personally not for me. Nintendo finally showcased their third-party support, which one being Elden Ring, which is a game that I thought was definitely coming to the Switch too, considering how it was never released on Switch, or at least if it was on Switch, it would have most likely been a cloud version. But it is cool to see Elden Ring finally get on the Nintendo platform, because honestly, I feel like Elden Ring is one of those games that I think could have been on the Switch if they optimized it well, but like I said, it would have most likely been a cloud version. We also got Hades 2, which no surprise considering how the original Hades was on Switch, so no doubt Hades 2 would come to Switch. Street Fighter 6 surprisingly was coming out to the Nintendo Switch too, and surprisingly it's coming out with amiibo support, which has 3 amiibo figures, Luke, Kimberly, and Jamie, as well as some amiibo cards that honestly I think I might pick up, considering how I like amiibos and I like collecting cards and whatnot. So I'll definitely check that out when I can. We also got Daemon X Machina, we got Joseph Fares' newly released Split Fiction, some Mid on the side, Hogwarts Legacy, which surprisingly was on Switch in the beginning, but we got a Switch 2 version, which honestly is a lot better considering how the original Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch was probably ass. Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters 3 and 4, Hitman World of Assassinations coming to Switch alongside a new James Bond game, with Default HD Remaster and Yakuza 0 Director's Cut to end the first batch of third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 2. Afterwards, we were revealed with a brand new Hyrule Warriors game, yet another one, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is pretty much a whole game focused on Zelda's perspective during her time in the past during the events of the main quest of Tears of the Kingdom. So this game, in my opinion, I'm not really that interested in, because honestly I'm kind of tired of the Warriors Zelda games, especially with Zelda, because beforehand we had Hyrule Warriors, the original one, then we had Fire Emblem Warriors, then Hyrule Warriors again, but with Breath of the Wild being a prequel to that game, and then now we have this. So yeah, I'm kind of burnt out of the Zelda Warriors format. Honestly, they could have done a different IP Warriors game, but it's fine for what it is. Personally, I'm not excited. I don't think I'll pick this up, but it is cool for those that want extra lore on Tears of the Kingdom. We finally got a new addition to the Switch Online expansion pack, and it is finally Nintendo GameCube. I feel like this could have probably worked with the Switch, but I'm glad that it's finally here on the Switch too, which means that in the possible future that we can honestly get Wii on the Switch Online expansion pack as well, but time will only tell. We got Wind Waker I was about to say Wind Waker HD, but we got Wind Waker the original, we got Soul Calibur 2, the one that had Link in it on the GameCube version, and we got F-Zero GX. I personally haven't played that one, so I'll definitely give that a shot when I can. We also got revealed about chapters 3 and 4 of Deltarune, which honestly I want to definitely play it, but probably when it's done. I'm not sure if it's only 4 chapters or if there's more coming along the way. I haven't really seen much info on this game, but when I do, and if all the chapters are done, I'll definitely give this game a shot, considering how I played the original Undertale a long time ago, and I really liked it, so can't wait to see what's up with this game. Borderlands 4 just randomly gets a update that it's coming out on Switch 2, as it's currently being developed for the other platforms, so it's most likely coming in September, or at least that's when the other consoles are coming out. So yeah, we'll probably see this game on Switch 2 in September. No, nothing special, it's just more Borderlands. Sid Meier's Civilization 7, even more Mid on the side, Survival Kids 2, Enter the Gungeon 2, this new Star Seeker game coming out in 2026, okay. Cyberpunk 2077 coming to the Switch 2, like what? That was a big surprise to me. Final Fantasy 7 Remake Integrate also coming to the Switch 2, like bro, if these games were to release on Switch back then, they would have, without a shadow of a doubt, be nothing but cloud data games, like cloud gaming type games on the Switch. Like that would have been a terrible decision, so I'm glad that they waited for the Switch 2. These look almost damn perfect. Now after this, they showed some third-party sizzle reel where all these games are coming to Switch 2. One of the main things that I caught notice, well, everyone caught notice, was Hollow Knight Silksong was finally given a release date of 2025. It was finally shown after God knows how long. Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which I'm personally very interested in because it's made by the same people that made the TMNT Shredder's Revenge game, so I'm definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, interested in that. But aside from that, nothing much really of my interest. Games that already released back then. Not really much interesting stuff for me personally. But one thing I do have to mention is that it's kind of crazy how mostly all of these games that were showcased, they could have all been on the original Switch, but not natively. They would have just been, cloud games, whatnot. Like, it's so glad that they didn't do that, which makes me wonder. I wonder if developers are going to go back to games that they put on Switch via cloud gaming and put them natively on the Switch too. Games like, the Kingdom Hearts games, Plague Tale games, Guardians of the Galaxy, games like those that I remember used to piss me off that they were on Switch. You might as well not even like put it out on Switch to begin with because of that. It just didn't seem like a reason to do that if you were just gonna make it a cloud game. It just didn't make sense. So I'm glad that games like Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, fucking Final Fantasy VII remake, those games did not come to Switch. They just waited, they took their time, and they're here for real. No cloud bullshit, nothing. So, and I'm kind of hoping that in the near future, there's no such thing as cloud gaming on the Switch too, because God forbid. Who am I kidding? Maybe it'll probably come back. Who knows? Now, after that sizzle reel, they showed off one last third-party game for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that was the Dust Bloods, made by From Software of all people. And this is pretty much the equivalent of a sequel that Bloodborne will ever get, because let's face it, Sony has been in denial of Bloodborne. They didn't even acknowledge it in its 10-year anniversary, so that doesn't give me much hope unless they shadow drop a remake, remaster, whatever the hell. Personally, I'm not into Bloodborne or Soulsborne games in general. They're just not my thing. But give the fans what they want, right? So I guess this is the next best thing. The one thing that really caught a lot of people off guard, not just me, is that this is a Switch 2 exclusive. What? Think about it. In the year 2025, Nintendo has a From Software game under their belt as an exclusive. Now, okay, obviously it's going to be timed exclusive. Okay, no way in hell are they gonna just let this be on the Switch 2 and leave it at that. Obviously, it's gonna come to probably PC, to the other consoles, the Xbox, the PlayStation 5. Obviously not, but give or take, I'll probably maybe 2 years max, maybe a year, and this will probably reach the console. But for now, it is pretty crazy that this is the game that's gonna be on Switch 2 for the time being. So that was pretty much all the third-party games that was revealed in the Switch 2 Direct, and overall, my thoughts are it's pretty good. It's a pretty solid lineup of third-party games that would have never saw the light of day on the original Switch, without a shadow of a doubt, because let's face it, the Switch is a pretty old console, and time just keeps going with these newer games that are releasing for the other consoles. So it's without a doubt in due time that these games are finally on a Nintendo console, and a powerful one at that. Because look, man, like, even though I'm personally not very interested in getting third-party games on the Switch, personally, that's mostly what my PC's for. It is good for other people that love to play games on the Switch. The convenience of handheld support and 4K now on the dock. It makes a lot of sense that these games are finally now on Switch. And like I said, games like 7 remake, Cyberpunk, this new FromSoft game that's exclusive to the Switch, it's really surprising how much they're not messing around this time. It seems like they want to really answer all of the criticisms that people were having with the Switch. Like, it's not powerful enough to have all these games. Stop putting games on cloud. It seems that they finally kept up with the crowd, kept up with the other consoles. Maybe not as much as like the newer ones, but I personally think that it is a massive improvement from the Switch. I mean, no shit, right? It's just like, wow, it's really great that we're finally getting all this stuff for the Switch, and it's great. Like, I don't really know what else I can say other than it's great. However, we're not done with Nintendo specifically. So, to what I thought was originally going to be a new entry in Smash Brothers was pretty much me getting jebaited, because out of nowhere we got Kirby Air Riders, a sequel to the GameCube game back in 2001, I think 2002. I'm not really sure, but it's been more than 20 years since the last entry, and it looks great. And what better to be had than Masahiro Sakurai returning to direct the game after so long of directing a Kirby game. it's a dream come true to a lot of the fans. So I'm definitely gonna be picking this up. This makes it now the third game that's a racing game that I'm gonna be interested in. We got Mario Kart World, Sonic Crossroads Racing, and now this game. So thank you, I guess. And lastly, we end off the direct with a new entry in the Donkey Kong franchise with a new 3D Donkey Kong Bonanza. This is the first new Donkey Kong game since Tropical Freeze and the first new 3D Donkey Kong since fucking DK64. I'm not really a Donkey Kong fan. I don't really play much of the games to even know that, but I think that was the last 3D game that this monkey ever got. But my opinion on Donkey Kong Bonanza is that, you know, since this is made by the Odyssey team, allegedly, I guess, but it pretty much looks like it was made by the Odyssey team because, you know, it was rumored that they were going to work on a Donkey Kong game. But in my opinion, cool. I mean, I'm not like disinterested in it, but like I'm also in no rush to play it because, you know, I never grew up with DK, so like I don't really have much to say other than, you know, it looks nice, it looks cool. I really love how expressive Donkey Kong looks in this game. You know, I feel like a lot of people are like, you know, up and down on his new, like, you know, like they went back to the SNES/Mario movie design of Donkey Kong. I personally think it looks great. You know, it allows him to be more expressive than ever before because, you know, say what you want about the rare version of Donkey Kong, but it's been so damn long. Nintendo might as well just make a new model for the guy, and you know, we have one. Well, whether you want to think of it as new or old is up to you, but me personally, it's been a while, so I want to say it's new. The game looks great. I do like how you can pretty much destroy everything. But yeah, you know, it's coming out in July, you know, just a month after the Switch releases, so you know, it gives you time to, you know, save up. You know, if you're not in the mood for Mario Kart, you know, this is the next best thing for you. So yeah, overall, I think this is pretty cool. You know, not really much else to say other than, you know, it's pretty cool. You know, something for Donkey Kong fans out there. And now we could completely ignore Donkey Kong Country Returns HD since Nintendo was obviously shoving that up our throats for God knows how long. So yeah, safe to say that this was a pretty good way to end off the Direct. Not really much else to say than just great. One last thing Nintendo shared with us is the different options for us to buy the Switch 2. You have the regular version and one that comes with Mario Kart World, so convenient. So overall, it was a good Direct. It was a pretty damn good Direct. I was satisfied. A lot of people were satisfied. It seemed like the entire world was satisfied for about 10 minutes or 10 seconds really, because not after this long that the Direct was finished, we were finally given information about not only the system itself, but also the games. Let's start off with the system first. So the system, it costs $450, which, okay, given the fact that, you know, we have 4K on the dock, 1080, 120 frames per second, game chat, I personally do not think it is a terrible deal, but it's also kind of like, like, you know, jumping from 300 to 450 is pretty steep. Like, I personally think maybe 400 would be an okay price, but 450, I mean, it's not god awful. It's not the end of the world, but it is something that I feel like maybe it might, well, obviously it's not going to do a dent, but like, it probably won't sell as quick as like the OG Switch. Now for people like me, that's not a problem, but you know, not everybody is someone like me. So, you know, parents, especially those that got their kids a Switch for Christmas, obviously are probably gonna look at this as something for the holidays, not something that, you know, kids definitely need to, because at the end of the day, a lot of these games could just be played on Switch. There's only like a handful of Switch 2 exclusives, which is to be expected given that the console's not even out yet, so there's only just a few things. But give or take a couple months, a year, this probably will boom. It's not gonna do terribly in my opinion. It'll probably do good. But overall, in my opinion, the price tag, I don't really care for it. You know, for a new console like this, it's acceptable for my standards. You know, I think it's perfectly fine. Now the games, on the other hand, ooh boy, not that long after the Direct ended, people found out the price for Mario Kart World, and let's just say people are not happy, and understandably so. $80. $80 for Mario Kart World. Okay, to be fair, online, a lot of modes, you know, this is a game that you're gonna probably be spending hours and hours and hours, probably 100 hours. But man, $80, that is a pretty big jump that I'm pretty sure not any game other than this game has. You know, you see normally $70 on most AAA games. This is definitely the first $80 that I've seen. And now that this is $80, I feel like a lot of other developers are gonna take advantage of this. And that is going to be a bad thing because, you know, given the fact that, you know, all the time that's put into all the resources and all development time, people are going to see this and think that this is going to be a perfect scheme to up the price more. You know, we might be seeing GTA 6 actually be $100. You never know. But I'm still going to buy Mario Kart World $80, but it's not going to leave a good feeling. And I'm honestly kind of scared for the future how much they're going to be charging for Switch 2 games, because even though that's $80, the new Donkey Kong game is $70. So it kind of, I guess, varies to them how it goes. But I don't know, man. It honestly leaves me kind of worried for how they're going to be pricing it, because like I said beforehand about that Switch 2 tech demo, that isn't free either, which again baffles me on how that's not free. It's essentially just a game where it just shows you all what the Switch 2 is all about, what, you know, what it does, and, you know, what's the secrets about it. It's just a bunch of mini games, you know. I don't understand how something like that is not free. I get they don't like giving handouts for their hard work, but at the same time, again, we're paying $450, almost $500 without maybe tax. You think you can do the bare minimum just by giving us it with the console? I mean, it is $10, which, hey, it is not the worst price in the world, but again, I'm not justifying it. Like, I think it should have been free. But other than that, you know, people are now, because of these little nitpicks, $80, $70, $10 tech demo, people are now divisive of the Switch 2, which, you know, given Nintendo fanboys' track records, we all complain about price, but we still buy it anyway. I remember not too long ago when Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was $70 and that was the talk of the town for quite a while. People still bought it. It still sold well. I think people will probably have no choice but to buy Mario Kart World, and just, you know, it'll still be a system seller. I don't know if it's going to sell as good as 8 Deluxe, because that was the #1 best-selling game on the Switch, and it remains undefeated, probably forever, really. I don't know if it's going to make those same numbers. Probably not. Maybe yes. I'll be surprised. If anything, that'll just justify that Nintendo fans complain, but we'll still buy anyway. But yeah, really, at the end of the day, I'm gonna get a Switch 2 whenever I can. I mean, right now the system pre-orders have been delayed due to the tariffs. I don't want to get to politics, but yeah, the system's been delayed in terms of pre-ordering because of these tariffs, and we might be seeing an up price on the console. So oops. But yeah, whenever the pre-orders go up, I'll be one of those first people to pre-order. But I don't know, man. Like, the Switch 2 has kind of left people a little bit divisive, and who knows in the coming days of what will happen. You know, I don't think the system's gonna do bad. We're not gonna go through another Wii U situation, far from it. But I just don't think we're going to get those same Switch numbers that the console has been doing, because it's been doing so well. I don't think we're going to be getting. I think we're still going to be getting good sales on the Switch 2, but probably not as big as the Switch, as the original Switch. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Switch 2. Do you think it's worth getting? Do you think it's maybe a bit best to wait until maybe the holidays to get it? I don't know. Let's have a discussion about it. That's all that I really have for you guys today. Thank you all for watching.